Hey everybody, welcome back to Instead of Writing. Today we're talking a little bit of steampunk because I'm sharing with you a book I read called The Affinity Bridge by George Mann. We're going to talk a little bit about how steampunk is different than just Gaslamp generally. It should be a fun show. If you don't have enough gears in there, you can add some gears and other myths about steampunk. Today I wanted to talk really quickly about the difference between Gaslamp and steampunk. Now steampunk is a genre I think that just ballooned in popularity in the past 10 years or so, and it might be, I guess, a little bit on the downward slope now. If you're a super big steampunk fan and you're like, that's not true, steampunk's on the rise, you just let me know in the comments and we can have it out there. So what is steampunk exactly? I mean, is it enough just to kind of get an old kind of Englandy type of plot line and then throw as many clockwork gears and stuff as you can into it and then just call it good? I don't think exactly. Steampunk is kind of unique because it's an intersection of a few different genres. There's historical fiction thrown in there. And oftentimes you'll see this mix of fantasy and sci-fi that comments, I think, relatively well on the age that it's set in. As the name suggests, there's steam engine technology that came around this time period. Usually it's like the late 1800s, early 1900s. And that steam engine technology just kind of pervades the entire world in steampunk books, and it's been built upon in ways that never truly happened in history as we know it. What I like about it is that it is a good commentary on how technology is advancing even in our day today. A lot of times you'll see themes come up in steampunk about similar technological ethical issues that we're looking at right now, like artificial intelligence, things like that. It also kind of features in a big fantasy piece, though, because, one, the technology is not going to get you all the way there, and I think sci-fi really tries to rely on feasible technological setups, and a lot of times you'll see like magic infused into steampunk in interesting ways. Now, Gaslamp fantasy, on the other hand, I think is maybe a broader umbrella term under which steampunk fits, which is ironic because I think steampunk is become more popular than its parent term. So Gaslamp fantasy is something I love to write in. It takes place in the reign of Queen Victoria, or a lot of times it will extend into Edward's reign as well. And often it will take place somewhere in the British Empire. And Gaslamp fantasy relies more specifically on the fantasy elements. It doesn't delve quite as much into the technology of the time. Now, George Mann, The Affinity Bridge. What is this book about? Well, I picked it up at a used library sale, which those things are amazing. Don't even get me started. You're like browsing through those books. If you have a shopping cart and you're just at a used library book sale, everything's $1. Don't mind if I do. Oh, hello. Is that book for sale? I'll take it. So that's what I did here. I was scrolling through, and I'm a big fan of stuff like this. This book, The Affinity Bridge, is the first book in a Newbery and Hobbs investigation series. The main character is Maurice Newbery, Sir Maurice Newbery. It's kind of a riff on the classic Sherlock Holmes crime-fighting duo. The split being is it's set in a steampunk world. And the Watson character is a woman named Veronica Hobbs. Kind of a quick synopsis. We are in a London in 1901. Queen Victoria is still alive by aided machinery, in which she has all sorts of tubes and stuff that are helping her stay alive. Which is kind of like, whoa. She looks kind of like Doc Ock, I think. But anyway, there's this weird fog in the city. Well, in the fog, there are like these like zombie-like creatures called revenants, and everybody's afraid of them. Because you would be afraid of zombies in the fog. But then there's this whole other side of it in which an airship goes down. And the airship was supposed to have been driven by an automaton. These automatons should be perfect. They shouldn't make mistakes. Dun dun dun. So you start the investigation there. I think that this book reminds me a little bit of a Guy Ritchie film in that there's a lot going on. And it's kind of a mile a minute. It's not the type of book that's going to lazily take its time and explore every avenue of what it's talking about. It reads kind of like an action film. The automatons in this book are steam-powered cog-work kind of robots But they are very sophisticated in the way that they think. So there's an artificial intelligence discussion that comes up. I would probably give the book like 3.5 out of 5 stars. You know, when I was reading it, I didn't feel like this is amazing. And yet here I am talking about it, and I finished it some time ago, and it keeps kind of worming its way back to my mind for some reason. I do think it's certainly worth reading if you can find a copy. I mean, especially like I did in a used library sale. It's like, why not? But I am interested to see where he goes in the Newbery and Hobbs investigation. Since then, he's done several more novels in this series, and I haven't read any of them yet. I look forward to reading them when I can get my hands on some copies of those. But I think the book does a really great job at breaking you into steampunk. And you can use it as a litmus test, perhaps. If you're not a big steampunk person, you could read this book, and the stuff in here, you will get a sense of, wow, steampunk is too much for me. For example, there are a few weapons, like the technology, and like there's a guy he has a cane that is very advanced and can turn into a whole contraption that electrocutes things. There are these stockyards that are just creating airships en masse, which is just, I mean, there's just tons of airships. The whole Queen Victoria thing, I'll be honest, one thing that will often bother me about steampunk or Gaslamp fantasy is the authors feel the necessity to bring royalty and really famous characters into the plot in substantial ways. I would prefer to keep those figures as perhaps, you know, an influence on the characters in a story in this time period. The number of people who truly interacted with Queen Victoria is just so low. You know what I mean? The Veronica Hobbs character is kind of interesting. I think Mann is trying to create some kind of pro-feminist arguments in there. She's certainly the type of woman that doesn't just sit on her laurels and wait for things to be nice for her. She's going out, she's working, she's involved in the crimes and all of that. I didn't feel as though it was done in a way that was distracting. I also think that Veronica Hobbs' like forward feminist kind of character is tempered by this will they won't they between the two main characters. Anyway, this was just a quick episode this week. Just wanted to share this book. If you have a suggestion on a book I should read you want to hear me talk about on this show, let me know in the comments. I'm always on the hunt for new great books.